Good morning, class, and welcome to week 3. Can you guys believe we're already in week 3? It's going pretty fast, isn't it? So this week, what I wanted to talk to you was give you your lecture on chapter 3. So this week, we turn to crime and delinquency. Now, as we know, this is a topic that many of us may be very familiar with. One of the questions that I always like to ask in my face-to-face classes is, how many of you have ever been affected by a type of crime? A lot of the times, majority of the time, I have students that raise their hands, right? And say, yes, someone robbed me, someone stole my car, someone broke into my house. There's different forms of crime that occur. And so we learn, right, according to our crime clock. And this is the one that I could find that's most recent. And this is actually on the FBI page in terms of statistics, right? So you figure by the end of this lecture, how many different types of crimes are going to occur, right? Different property crimes that occur, that's 3.7 seconds. So every 3.7 seconds, a property crime occurs. A violent crime occurs 27.1 seconds, right? So again, by the end of this lecture, how many crimes, according to this crime clock, will be committed, right? So a variety of crimes that we have, it's any type of violation that's against the law. We're going to learn a little bit about white collar crime, but for this notion, we're talking about crime which is a violation of criminal law. And we're going to talk about that. So again, there's different types of crime that occur. 10 years ago, there was no such thing as computer crime. You figured the computer crime that we had when AOL first began, right, was the trouble of getting into chat rooms. As we know, that type of crime has emerged into many different types of, it's like an expansion, right? We see cyberbullying, we see cyber hacks. So again, we see the evolution of different types of crime that occur over time, right? The FBI, the Federal Investigation Bureau, identifies 8 major felonies, all serious crime violations of criminal law and predatory crimes. And you're going to be looking at the 8 major felonies throughout your chapter. So when we see something that is illegal, we see that it's against the law. So we're not taught, we are taught, I should say, that we don't do this because we will receive consequences, right, that are attached to our actions of what we do. So if we go into a store and we steal a pack of shirts and we are then caught, then we do not get a slap on the wrist and say we don't do that, and then we go on our merry way, right? We actually are brought in, right? The police are called, we're handcuffed, and then, right? And then from there, we're going to get into what we're going to be talking about once we get into, going into trial, going into prison, going into jail. Involved in crimes of negligence is involved in unintended victim or potential victim. So, for example, reckless driving and other infraction of the laws by automobile drivers, right? So we're going to see that there are crimes that we don't mean to commit, right? But they do occur. How many times have we heard of automobile accidents, right? Because especially again, not only in the past was it because of drunk driving, but now crimes and negligence because we are on our cell phones, we're text messaging, we're calling someone. Where not too long ago, I came across an article where a girl caused a very big fatal accident because she was on her Snapchatting of what she was doing as she was driving. So again, you're going to talk about computer crime. In Introduction to Sociology, we actually go more into the idea of white collar crime. White collar crime is usually individuals that have high positions, that are high ranked. They're the ones that are more likely to be able to afford the best lawyers, to help them maybe reduce their sentence and what is occurring. An example that I will always bring in is Martha Stewart, right? Martha Stewart in the way of what she did inside her training. But again, take into account that what Martha Stewart endured, right? It was, a lot of us would say that it was more of a slap on the wrist than actually her, um, you know, really serving time for what she really did, which was inside trading, right? Which is very illegal. She goes off to what a lot of people would say was this, very nice resort type of all women's prison, where she then, did very well in terms of behavior and actually led many classes in terms of etiquette and setting tables and preparing, family meals, with the other women that were serving time. She also came out with an autobiography of her time that she served, as well as coming out with a jewelry line that you can find at Michael's, right? Now, if I were to commit that, as an instructor, that makes nowhere near how much Martha Stewart makes, right? I would have not received the exact treatment, right? I guarantee you I would have been sent to a different prison. I also would not have come out with an autobiographical story, let alone a jewelry line, right? So depending on what type of crime is committed by certain people, then depending on who they are, their place in society, it's not going to be the same as another person. Organized crime. Organized crime is the organization of people who provide illegal services and goods, who maintain their activities by the aid of political corruption. A lot of students in the past will equate the mafia, right? Where in the mafia there are definitely levels, right? Levels of power and authority of who is at the highest, right? Who is to be respected and treated in a different way. Then there's the juvenile violence, right? In terms of children that are under the age of 18. All states now have a juvenile court system. We think of children, right? Especially when they're 7 years of age. Can a 7-year-old have hatred in them to the point where they commit a malicious act of violence? And we see that, we really do. If you search and do research in terms of children that have committed crimes, we see that it does occur. Now, are we able to treat these individuals the same way we would with someone that is over the age of 18, right? Delinquency is a term that does not sufficiently capture the severity of the problem of youth crime. When we talk about delinquency, we talk more of the idea of, a delinquent is someone that has done something bad, right? If you've done a deviant act, at one point in our lives, we have all committed some type of deviant act, right? Um, I'll admit, when I was in college and it was Napster that was very big in downloading illegal music, I had I was hardly making any money, right, of where I worked on campus. So I did not think it was considered stealing, right? Because I was a poor college student. Where was I going to get money to get all those songs? I also thought, right, at the time that all these artists, right, Britney Spears, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to age myself, right? She's making tons of money. Like, Britney could care less that I downloaded one or two songs or her full album. She was still going to be making millions, right? So then it gets to the point where we're being deviant, that we actually tend to, what's the word? We try to make it seem that it's okay, right? We try to make it seem like it's okay because, because of X, Y, and Z, right? So it becomes accommodating where it's okay to tell that little white lie because of X, Y, and Z. But as we know, different acts of being deviant may over time grow older. May grow bigger, right? And it's like a snowball effect as we get older. That's not to say that it will, but again, it could lead to that, right? So the American belief in our system is that those accused of a crime is presumed innocent until proven guilty. In our face-to-face discussion, I asked this question, and we have the discussion of whether you agree or disagree. What if you saw an individual commit an act of violence or a crime right in front of you, right? And you know they did it because you saw it happen right in front of your face, right? Does this still hold true? And as we know, we do, because that individual would then still have to be taken into custody, would then go through a trial by jury, and then the sentencing beginning on what occurred, right? So again, we cannot just say, like, okay, they did it, boom. This is how you're going to be charged, right? Now, widespread in crime and delinquency, it's very difficult to see the data, to gather data in terms of, how widespread it is, because it gets to the point where, a lot of people do not want to report what happens. A lot of victims feel that we're going to be reprimanded if we were able to turn in our perpetrator, if we were able to say, like, yes, that person did this, right? Because we're afraid that they're going to retaliate, that they're going to come back and, do something to us. So therefore, we see that when the FBI is collecting data, that is very, very difficult to obtain that information. Let alone white collar crime, right? Because again, depending if people are buying off of each other, and paying each other off in terms of, get me off on what I just did, we don't see that. That's not going to be reported. That's not to say it's going to come out on the media, right? Because it does come out, right? Distribution of crime, again, it's unequally distributed in the United States. It's going to vary from region to region, state to state, and of course the population, right? The bigger the population, more crime is going to come out of that area. The smaller it is, you're going to hear those small town places around the U.S. where they sleep with their windows open all night long. They never lock their doors, and yet no one ever breaks into the house. Now, do that, say for example in Los Angeles or a bigger city, Chicago, chances are you cannot live that same lifestyle, right? Of leaving your doors unlocked while you go to school or you go to work all day long, right? This leads us into the criminal justice process. So, as you're going to note from viewing the PowerPoint, is that it's quite the lengthy process from the time that the criminal justice process begins. It's very, very lengthy. Again, it depends if there's a plea bargaining to whether there's going to be a lighter sentence. It's also going to change if the person says that they plead guilty or non-guilty. According to statistics for federal cases, half or fewer of those arrested for crimes are ever convicted and are incarcerated. So then that leads us into what our chapter always talks about, which is the quality of life, right? So according to your textbook, the land of opportunity notion loses some of its appeal for those who fear that their success can make them victims if it attracts criminal activity, for example. Crime diminishes the quality of life by exacting high physical, psychological, and economical cost, right? We always have the discussion in terms of, if a person is found guilty of a crime, do they go to prison? For what offenses? For how long? If we didn't have, an overpopulation of prison, and we do in many places, what do we do? Are there certain offenses that do not need longer sentencing? Are there programs such as rehabs? Are rehabs or punishment, which is easier, right? Can you trust a criminal to become a law abiding citizen? That's a very important question to ask. As you know, when you're filling out a job application, it asks you, right? Right then and there, a person, if they have served time, depending on what they, what crime they committed, it's going to show the employer right away. Oh, this person is served time. Can I trust them? What if they come into my business and they say that they've changed and then they steal from me, or they commit, a felony, or they commit a crime, right? Can we trust someone, right? Rehab programs. Can we put someone in a rehab program and show them that they can change and acclimate to life outside of jail? Not too long ago, there was a story of a male that committed a crime. He went into a a children's shoe store and at gunpoint robbed the store, and police came. They arrested him. He served his time in jail. His sentence was about 10 years in length. The day that he was released from prison, he went back to that same exact store and did the same offense. Now you'd be thinking, why on earth would you want to do that? When they asked him why he did it, he said, I do not know life outside of prison. So for the last 10 years, I have my routine. I know what to do. The day that I knew I was coming out, I knew I had to do it again because I knew I would go back to my routine. I do not know how to acclimate. I do not know where to go, right? And so it's stories like this that you think, is there a problem in terms of how we treat those individuals that are leaving jail, that are leaving prison, in terms of acclimating to life outside of prison walls, right? Um, so that's pretty much an introduction to what you guys will be learning about this week. So if you guys have any questions, please email me. I have graded your discussion. You guys did so well. Can I just tell you, you guys blew all my other classes out of the water. You guys did amazing. Every time I would grade one, I was like, yes, they're getting it. This is so great. So keep it up. A lot of you guys are bringing in outside sources. You're bringing in videos. You're bringing in articles. You're relating great quotes back to your class material. Keep up the great job. You guys are doing amazing, like I said. So one of the things I was going to say is, do not forget that September 4th, your first assignment is due. Okay, so make sure that you do submit it. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. You can find the questions in last week's module as well as in your assignment. Okay, please do not wait until the last second, because if you do try to post after 11:59, it is going to shut you out of that assignment and then you will not be able to post. Okay, for this week's discussion board, we're going to talk about, do we seriously wish that crime did not exist? We're also going to talk about what are the primary causes of deviance, right? Why do people break rules? We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. One of the things that I will bring in outside sources, as I did last week, in terms of crime is, if you look back to, the Western days, right? You couldn't go anywhere because there was like a duo everywhere you went. People went into the saloons. I mean, watch all the Westerns that you can see, like Deadwood, right? For example, and all these different historical, documentaries that we watch. Has crime gone down, or has it been on the rise? And why is that? So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well in this week's discussion board. So I hope you guys enjoy your rest of the week. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.